Greetings, I'm Sony from RefMasters, and this is the Call in the Crowd, where we're humanizing referees one pod at a time. I'm joined by my co-partners, James Williams, just finished his 14th year as an NBA referee, Kane Fitzgerald, who did a dozen years as a referee and has more recently spent the last 2 seasons as the VP head of replay in the NBA's offices in Secaucus. Gentlemen, the NBA season is over. It looks like our lives are a bit different. I see Kane in a room with a guitar behind him. I see James in a kitchen. So is this what life is like in the off season?
Yeah, you know, I'm at my parents for a few days, so I always come and see them when the season's over because you don't have a lot of time during the season. You're gone so much. So they live over Northwest Indiana, about an hour from Chicago. So I'm over here hanging out, and it's actually raining here. So yeah, I'm in the kitchen. You can see all the kids' photos, just like you would see at your parents' kitchen on the refrigerator. Yeah, that's my mom too. So just hanging out with them and reconnecting with the family. So I'll do that because it's important. And 7 months on the road it's brutal. So it's always good to be able to have some time to reconnect with your loved ones.
Kane, is that your guitar in the background? Is that a thing you do in the off season?
No, it's my son's, and he doesn't play much anymore. They kind of transitioned to piano, so they do that. My son and daughter play the piano.
They take lessons.
Well. And they take lessons and weekly lessons, and they practice every day. And they've been doing that for quite a long time, so they're pretty talented with it.
Nice.
That's great. So the season is over, and we've got a lot of questions from our audience that has shared those questions on Instagram and TikTok. But first, let's take a few questions about the NBA Finals, which just recently concluded. We had a question come in about blowout games. This recent NBA Finals had a few games where the margin was quite wide. And you both have worked NBA Finals games, multiple games. In a blowout, like we had a few times in the NBA Finals this year, how do you stay focused? How do you not let that affect your officiating?
How do I say it? Blowouts for referees, that you never really have a blowout because you're still required to be accurate and still required to manage the game and still required to do your job. So even though the score is not close, it doesn't change anything for you as a referee. You still have to work just as hard. You still have to stay just as focused because that one mistake that you make because you got distracted or you weren't focused because it was a blowout could now make the game, go out of control, turn into a fight. There's a lot of tension in a blowout, especially for the team that's losing. Is the team that's up, kind of rubbing their nose in it, all that stuff. You just don't get a blowout as a referee. It's very rare that you can relax.
Yeah, you still got to do the job. And actually, this is something fans may not even know, but it's going to be, maybe a little groundbreaking to them. But Fitz knows this. Blowouts are harder to work than tight games. And the reason why is because of what you think. It's like you have to work extra hard to keep your focus. Your self-talk has to be even better in a blowout. Because when it's a 5, 7, 2-point game, you're just locked in because it's that, tight or whatever. But referees and umpires are human, so you have to really make sure you stay locked in when it's 27 points or 30 points. And so you're doing a little extra to make sure you're going through your fundamentals, your basics, referee the defense, stay in my primary, don't guess, and then to Kane's point, you have this whole new thing you have to manage now, which is a team is getting beat by a certain amount of points. People are still prideful. And so now you gotta you gotta make sure that this doesn't turn into, somebody does something on the winning team or you're up 30, you score a dunk, and then you have all these unwritten rules. Is someone going to take offense to that? And so you're trying to manage all of that, which you don't have to do when the game is close. So for my 2 cents, blowouts are actually harder to referee than tight games.
Blowouts are harder to referee. That's a headline. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also liking this morning recording that we're doing right now. You know, it's Kane. Hey, Kane, what do you think? Well, blah, 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 blah. James, what do you think? James, blah, 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 blah. Everyone is talking very deep and very impressively this time. So
We'll get a sponsor from Dunkin'. They have great coffee. Just saying.
Yeah.
Come on.
whoa, the New Jersey guy goes mad on Dunkin'. What?
Right.
My wife's European. We drink espresso in my house. So like once you go to espresso, black coffee,
Right. He's got his
no good.
his little espresso cups in the afternoon.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
Hi, Siditi. I'm telling you, the high life, man. That's the Fitzgerald family right there.
Once you get a little, and now we're in Florida, so we'll find some Cuban coffee loaded with sugar. Just you might as well inject it. Might as well inject that stuff right to your vein.
Everybody thought when they were reading The Great Gatsby in college or in high school that it was about this. It was actually about this family here. It was written about.
So far from it. So far from it. Oh, I gotta tell you though, it's amazing how far you do come. You know, when we started, James, it's just unbelievable.
We'll do a whole podcast on that one. Oh Lord,
Yeah.
The journey is it's vast and long, and you come from a long way for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
Hey, I got a non sequitur since we're doing non sequiturs right now.
Mm-hmm.
I recently saw a new pizza place opening not too far from where I live called Mr. 01 Extraordinary Pizza. And when I looked on their website, they said that they have a location in downtown Naples. So
Good.
I was wondering, like, it looks from the look of Kane's face, I'm going to guess that he has not been to this pizza place before.
No, that's the one thing about moving to Florida. I'm a little sketchy with the pizza. You know, you grow up in Jersey. It's pretty hard to find bad pizza in New Jersey. It's pretty hard to find good pizza anywhere else.
Oh please,
Something with the water. I think it's the Northeast Aquifer, the water that they use that they make the dough with. I truly believe that.
That does actually, I do think that is an impact for sure.
Yeah.
I'll let you know. This place, I'm in the same position. My go-to pizza is Pizza Hut here.
I knew you were going to say that for some reason. I knew you were going to say Pizza Hut, and that is garbage pizza.
Listen, that was good stuff when I was a kid.
Oh God!
Yeah,
Going to the Pizza Hut buffet. Are you kidding me? That was on a Friday night. That was like the greatest thing ever. Pizza Hut buffet.
I recently was driving down the road and I saw a Pizza Hut that had dine-in space, and I literally pulled the car over and walked inside the restaurant and said, "Hey, I'm just checking. Do you all do the buffet?" They said no, because no one really does the buffet anymore. But Pizza Hut, get on it. Pizza Hut, if you do the buffet, you will be tapping into so much nostalgia, like all the money that Disney makes when they keep remaking these animated films.
Yeah.
Us 30, 40, 50-year-olds, we will take our families to your Pizza Hut if you open dine-in and have a buffet.
No doubt. No doubt.
Just for the record, I'm still 29.
Oh, okay. My bad. Thanks for clarifying that. Yeah.
This is April Fool's. What's today?
All right. But speaking of fans, because we're all fans of pizza.
Yeah.
The fans during the NBA Finals on TV, they seem really loud. That game 1 in Boston, that game 4 in Dallas, when they were really trying to rally behind the team, get a win. How does that affect you as an official? Are they considerably louder as a referee on the floor in a finals game? Does it make it hard to communicate either with your partners or with other participants on the floor?
Yeah, they're way louder. It's like a whole different level. I remember I described it as first time my first game was in Oracle Arena, Golden State, first NBA Finals game. It was so loud you could it vibrated through your body. Like that's the level of volume that's there. It's not just audible. You can feel it. So it's pretty intense. I like it though because like you can't hear all the stuff you hear during the regular season. Like somebody says something as they're walking by you, or you can ignore a lot more because you just don't hear it, and which is great because then you don't have to deal with some of the stuff we normally have to address. So,
Yeah, it's loud. I would say what helps is that we don't have to necessarily communicate verbally as officials. As officials in basketball, we communicate through our eyes, and that never it doesn't impact that. So, but it's when I'm on the floor with Kane or whomever, we are refereeing off of each other's eyes. So when I see that Kane is on ball, I know where I've got to go off ball and referee where Kane can't. So that's the mechanics of basketball officiating. I don't have to, say, "Hey, Kane, are you on the ball?" It's he's. I can see where he's looking now. I know
yeah,
where I need to go and do my checks. And so in the finals, you got 12 of the best, and so everybody is really, really good at it. That's just the nature of it. And so the only time it may impact you is when you are like cuddling up for something, and the noise, and you might have to speak a little louder because you can't hear each other. But other than that, as far as doing the job, you the mechanics of refereeing off each other's eyes is even that more important because you can't hear anything in there. You
yeah,
can't hear each other. It's impossible.
That's cool. I had not thought about the elevated importance of the nonverbal, but that makes a lot of sense. And the best referees have already spent years on developing that ability, so it would serve them well in that kind of environment. Neat. Another question here about the NBA Finals. I've been a fan. I've been watching the NBA Finals every year since the early 90s. Actually, my earliest memory that I can very vividly recall is Game 6 of the 1993 Finals, Bulls and Suns. Game 6,
Yeah.
the Paxson 3. And I remember where I was watching that game. And so since then, decades of incredible NBA Finals moments. You all, I've learned, watch a lot of film. You learn from the habits and from the techniques of the very best. Is there an NBA Finals series or a game or something that you've come back to a few times where you've just studied it and appreciated it as phenomenal officiating?
I'll go with that. Like you, Sony. Like I said, I'm 29, but I was around in the 90s watching the finals as well. So you do the math on how that works out. Um, so I remember, when you're a fan, you don't pay attention to the refs. Like that's no one does, right? We get that. So I had nothing. I knew nothing about officiating. I was just watching the Bulls play back in the 90s. But I will say, now that we're in this job, I will say for me the series of Cavs Warriors, when the Cavs went down 3-1, and so when you know what good officiating looks like, once you learn the craft, that game 7 crew, which was Danny
yeah.
Crawford, Duke, Mike Duke Callahan, and Monty McCutcheon, who's now our
Hmm.
boss. Those three guys in that game 7 back at Oracle did a phenomenal job. They hit it out the park, and it wasn't a blowout, right? It came down to the end, the block, the shot by Kyrie. But if you look at the tape of that through our eyes, it's the things that you're looking for is just they stay disciplined. The timing of their whistles, which means they're not antsy, they're not on pins and needles and jumping at plays. They're taking their time, which means that they are truly processing the play before they make a decision. There was a play about, I think, a play or two out of bounds and getting help, where you can tell that they were just connected as a crew. And that's why that game went so well in a pivotal game 7 in the NBA Finals, which doesn't happen that often. As a matter of fact, that was the last one we've had. So that to me, that game 7, the way they worked that game was just really, really well done.
What about you,
Yeah,
King?
I couldn't agree more. Like that's the pinnacle of officiating. Your Game 7 NBA Finals, and that's the last one we've had, and to perform that well under those circumstances, tip your hat to those guys. They were excellent.
Yeah, Game 7, I imagine, would be really challenging. I know when I've gone back and looked at games from the previous eras, the amount of physicality, the amount of scoring was different, and it's interesting to see how referees have to control the game. Something I've learned from both of you is that often that managing the game and the level of physicality often happens off the ball. And not an NBA Finals game, but when I look at some of those in the 1998 Eastern Conference Finals, the Bulls versus the Pacers, really physical series. Last 2 games in particular, knockdown, drag out, a lot of free throws. And of course, these teams knew each other, didn't like each other, and seeing the crew have to really keep control over that game and uh, thankfully avoided any kind of controversy, anything that left the integrity of the game in doubt. They did a phenomenal job. But we've got those physical series along the way. Another one that comes to mind is the Game 7 of the 2000 NBA Finals. That was the Lakers and the Celtics, where
Oh,
Artis hit the 3 in the last minute. Another really physical game. I always just imagine that must be really tough as an official. I mean, it's already tough, but
Yeah.
you've got no outs, so to say. There's no other game after this where if a mistake is made, the other team can recover. So, yeah, just that level of pressure. I'm speaking to you both. You both know better than me, and just kind of marveling at being able to perform the job under that kind of scrutiny.
that's what makes it exciting, right? That's why the NC2A tournament is so exciting, because every game in that tournament is a Game 7. So you're going to get everything both teams have. They're going to give it everything they got, because if they lose, they're done till next year. So, this might be a controversial topic, but I was a huge fan of going back to the first round being 5 games. Because what it does is it gives that team, who's ever the 8 seed, versus it gives them a little bit more of a chance against the 1 seed, right? You only have to win 3 as opposed to winning 4. Of course, we'll never go back to that, but I was a fan of best of 5. I thought that was much more exciting than 7. That's just the way I see it. But when you have 7, it's really hard for the lesser team to beat the better team 4 times. Like in the NC2A tournament, it's not about the best teams necessarily, because
Who's
you could be
hot?
the best team. What's that?
It's who's hot in the moment.
It's who's hot. Exactly.
Who's
Like
hot?
that.
Yeah.
Do you get hot in that 40-minute game, and now all of a sudden you may not be the better team, but you come out, on top, and so that other team is gone. But listen, we'll never go back to best of 5. But I was a big fan of best of 5 series in those first rounds.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. As someone that grew up and lived in Orlando, we had a playoff series against the Detroit Pistons in 2003, where the Magic, heavy underdogs, were up 3-1, and this is early T-Mac days, and this was where after Game 4, T-Mac post game interview talked about how excited he was to make it to the second round, and then they lost the last 3 games. That was the beginning of the Doc Rivers streak of losing 3-1 leads in the playoffs. But that was painful.
Okay.
Right, that was one of those ones where, underdog team, they steal a couple of games. If it's a 5-game series, they make it to the next round. And watching a better team just carve your guys up for 3 games in a row was pretty painful. But you're right. I think in the 90s we had a really good upset. We had that, I think 1994, we had the Nuggets and the Sonics. That was a 5-game series. You had the Kemi Mutombo, that iconic image of him laying on his back, holding the ball over his head. And
Oh yes.
yeah,
Mhm.
and,
What
and you're
about
not
the?
going to have those upsets so much. The only one that I think comes
Yeah.
to mind really was '07 Warriors and Mavs. And that was
Yes.
more like the confluence, like the perfect storm, where you had the former coach that knew all of the strategy and the personnel of what the players could and couldn't do. And the Warriors were hot. And, I don't need to
Yeah.
I don't,
Shout
I don't
out
want
to
to criticize where I shouldn't criticize, but yeah, it was just one of those kind of perfect storms. But yeah, I don't think you're going to see a lot of those upsets, to your point, James.
yeah, no.
Yeah.
And that year Dallas was the number 1 seed, I believe, right? Yeah. And Don Nelson and company. That was an incredible series. It's just, because no one gave the Warriors a shot. But they did it. Yeah. Don Nelson. Hall
Our
of
guy
Fame.
Baron Davis, B Diddy, was in that one.
Yep.
He played phenomenal, and then that second round dunk on Karolinko. It's a classic moment. So shout out to Baron Davis.
Shout out to
That was
Baron.
it's fun. It's funny how basketball, even these teams that relatively speaking don't achieve a lot, how they can still live in our minds, and some of these iconic moments go forward. They don't have to be the conference finals or the finals for it to happen. But let's come back to the finals, because I did have one other question about this. People are asking this question or variation of this. After you're done with the finals game, how do you know how you did? And to the extent that you can speak about this, how do you find out? Do you get evaluated specifically on that game? Do you get I don't know, probably not a report card, or do you get a phone call, or is it just kind of does it just kind of carry over to the next season? What's after the game like in terms of assessing yourself or potentially being assessed?
I mean,
We'll let the suit answer that one.
usually the director of officials is at every finals game. So, post game,
Cool.
If there's something that needs to be addressed, it's usually addressed post game. For the most part, it's your last game of the season. So if all went well, there's not a lot of discussion. Kind of like guys did good. Like, go enjoy yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, we get graded on everything, but
yeah,
for
the
us,
game still gets broken down by the reviewing team. It goes into your database as far as your stats go, but as far as being like directly addressed by management, it's usually your last game of the year. It's a little bit more sacred as a just enjoy that moment, and unless there's just something egregious that needs to be addressed,
Right. I think that's a good way to put it. Unless it's something we really screwed up in that game, you're gonna hear from the boss about it.
Sure.
That's just part of it. It's part of being a referee. It's part of being a referee at this level. That's the that's the accountability part of it. And so, but again, at that level, you're down to the top 12 or whatever, 15 guys, ladies. It's you're just hoping you don't have something where it's it's like, holy crap, you had a big impact on a finals game on an error, right? And so you do that by going through your routine of calling the obvious, trust each other, don't guess, be slow on the ball, and you work that for 48 minutes. And I always say in these games, we are more mentally exhausted than we are physically exhausted. I mean, we've just ran 4 miles or whatever, but mentally we are much more exhausted because you have to be on it with your thinking. You're making decisions out there. And just like a coach, you are during a game, I may call 12 fouls during the game, right? If every referee on the floor calls 12 to 13 fouls, you're looking at about 40 fouls for the game. But I'm probably making over 300 and plus decisions during that game, and only 12 of them are going to get a whistle. So just think about that. And all those decisions, you're having to have an understanding and awareness of the game and what you are allowing and what you're not allowing. And does this meet the standard? Does this not meet the standard? Is this too much contact? You're going through all of that for 48 minutes.
Yeah, on the biggest stage, under the biggest microscope. So it is definitely mentally exhausting. You are spent when the game's over. most of the time, I remember just sitting there, not moving for 20 minutes, like not even getting undressed, just sitting down for 15, 20 minutes, just to decompress.
Yep.
Reminds me of I recently heard Tony Robbins talking about Steph Curry and his preparation, and the he did the math on it. I don't have the exact numbers, but
I've
it
seen
was
that. It's
something
pretty
like
yeah.
with all of the training that Steph Curry does, for every shot that he takes in a game, he takes about 1,000 shots of practice. With something like that. Like the iceberg, the part of the iceberg you see above the water is so small compared to what's underneath the surface.
Yeah.
The amount of preparation just that goes into one shot for Steph Curry. And it's similar for you. The amount of decisions that you make mentally, the amount of preparation you do, how the tip of the iceberg is maybe a call or a no call that people see, but it's really just a small fraction of everything that leads up to it.
Correct. It's and yeah, it's and then those the tiny fraction of you know the decisions you make, you got to be good with those. So if I'm 7 of 12 or 7 of 13, that is not good. I had to be around 11 of 13. That's what is going to be allowed of acceptable play calling. You cannot be 6 of 13, 6 of 12. That's 50% on the ones that you're calling. That is, you see where I am now at my parents' house. That's a recipe for me to be here all year round. Because you'll lose your job.
Yeah, so you can't be shooting you can't be hitting that baseball percentage, I guess. No.
No.
Mhm.
Well, hell, if you were 500 in baseball, you'd be a first ballot Hall of Famer. No doubt about it.
You'd be an alien.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. So with the NBA Finals now over, what does that mean for you as an official? Is it immediately the season is over? Is there any kind of post season stuff that you have to do? When is the next time that you're required to do something?
Well, if you're, I for the finals officials, you're normally obviously when you're done. First of all, if you're in the finals, you have less summer time, right? You're not off as long as your some of your colleagues who weren't fortunate enough to make the playoffs or make it that far. So for us, it's once the season's over, it's over. You literally get your time. It's kind of like amazing because you don't have to go anywhere. It's like I don't have to get on an airplane and fly, into all the time zones in one week. I literally get the opportunity to just stay at home if I want, play golf, travel, whatever I want to do, and it's your time until you go back to camp in September in New York. But I do know a lot of like the finals officials. They'll go to Vegas or I think Utah and Sacramento. I think have camps, have summer league, so they'll go out there in the summer and teach for a few days. A lot of the younger referees on our staff, I think year 1 through 4, something like that, they go because it's just part of your growth. When you're a young referee, you go to summer league to work on your game. We did it. That's just the nature of it. You're trying to, in an NBA game, you're going to be the third person on the crew. You're going to be the umpire. In Vegas, you get an opportunity to be a crew chief. So now you're leading lesser experienced officials out there on these games. It's just another way for you to grow, to get better, to learn your craft. So that when September, October comes around for preseason, you've just got another notch in your belt to help you when you're out there on that hardwood. But once the season's over, just like players, it's Cabo time. It's Cancun time. It's Turks and Caicos, Europe. I'm going to Croatia this year.
You hear this,
told,
Sony? This
yeah,
is
it's what it is, man. That's what it is. Um, I told Zubox because Zubox good people. So Zoo's always getting on me. He's like, you got to work on your toss. I agree. I have to work on my toss because he doesn't like the way I toss. So I said, well, he goes, we work on our game in the summer. You guys, I said, yeah, absolutely. I work on my game. I said, I'll come to Croatia and I'll just keep tossing it up, so that you can do it. And then after about an hour of that, we'll go hang out at the beach and just chill. He said, they got beautiful beaches. So I'm checking out Croatia this summer. It's just things like that, man. Hey,
Croatia, that's where you work on your toss, huh?
that's how I'm going to work on my toss in Croatia. Hey.
Better see. I want to see the deflated ball packed in your bag, or I'm not buying it.
Or you can bring one of those silent ones now. They make the ones that don't make any sound.
We're
around.
gonna get some video of this, and we're gonna post it on our socials. And I'm a man of my word. Like, listen, Zubas was talking about how great it is. He's like, we got the best beaches. So
I've heard the same thing. I've heard it's absolutely beautiful. I would love to go see it one day.
He was telling me it's beautiful. So that's where he goes back to his home. He goes back to his home country in the summer. I'm gonna go check it out.
Nice.
We've got to have a RefMasters camp in Croatia. Sometime.
I like that.
Instead of flying those Eastern European.
Can we find a beachfront court?
I'm all in.
So you were just talking about the toss, right? And this brings me back to one other thing about the NBA Finals or about really big games. I imagine as a referee, there are times when something happens, you feel like you've made a huge mistake. It might not even be a call, a non-call, or a call. It could just be something around your positioning or about an interaction, something you did on the court, where maybe you thought like, wow, like I made a big mistake. I blundered there. And you're expecting other people to like point it out later, your boss or someone to kind of get on you about it. And then you come to find out that like, no one noticed it the way that you in your head thought it was, right? I know as a performer, I run into that all the time. I'm like, oh, that was terrible. I did this thing and I didn't do this thing that I normally should do. And then everyone's like, no, it was great. What are you talking about? There's no mistakes. So is that something that comes to mind? Do you have a story or an example that comes to mind of like a time when you thought you made a huge blunder, but really it was like, it was just in your head. It wasn't even the thing that anyone else even noticed or cared about.
Okay, so I do have an example. I remember this. This was last year. Was it last year that Miami eliminated Milwaukee in Game 5?
Yeah, that was last year.
Yeah, that was last year. Okay, so we're on that game. It's me, Sean Wright, Pat Frayer, and our alternate is Rodney Mott. And so the alternate in the NBA doesn't go out and sit at the table. They are in the locker room. And if someone gets injured, hurt, or sick, they're going to come out of the locker room. But while they're in the locker room, they are watching the game and they are charting plays and decisions so that when we go back at halftime, they'll tell us what we got to get better at, what are we missing, what do we need improvement, things like that. So this is Miami's up 3-1, I think it was, on Milwaukee, and we're in Milwaukee. And during the game in the second quarter, there's a free throw. And all of a sudden, these possessions are extremely important. So everybody's boxing out. And Bobby Portis and Duncan Robinson get tied up a little bit. And Duncan comes out with like he's bleeding. Like, oh crap, what did we miss? And so there's this whole kerfuffle that's now going on between Miami and Milwaukee. Like they are, we're getting double texts, and I'm thinking to myself, what in the world did we just miss? And because I'm like, I didn't see anything, saw nothing. So, and Miami's like, oh, he took a cheap shot. I mean, they're giving us the business about, that Bobby Portis has done something wrong here. So we get back to the locker room at half, and I immediately go to Rodney. I said, Rodney, what happened on the lane line during the free throw? Rodney goes, what free throw? What are we talking about? He's like, I haven't seen anything out of the ordinary. And so we're like, yeah. He goes, yeah, I was wondering why they all came together. But nothing happened. So we're like, can you pull it up? And so he pulls. We have replay pull it up for us at all these different angles. It's literally just the two of them bumping. Like it was absolutely accidental. And I remember being like, you got to be freaking kidding me! Like they just caused this huge scene, and nothing happened on the play. Nothing. It was complete incidental contact. And I was like, well, first of all, I was relieved, like, wow, we didn't miss something. But then it's like they can convince you something terrible happened, and you have to just know until you see it. I tell young people all the time, until you see it, don't buy into it. And so Rodney thought we were crazy when we came in that locker room asking him about it. He's like, nothing happened on free throw. What? So I was like, I learned a lesson there. I was like, oh my goodness. Okay. All right. That's good. I'm going to log that one up here about that.
That's awesome. It's funny too, just the natural instinct we have as human beings to trust what someone is saying. And we also don't want to seem unreasonable. And that can get you into a lot of trouble with, like you said, if you're not going with what your eyes see, you're just taking someone's word for it. You guys talk a little bit sometimes at your film sessions about having the referees on the honor system, or having the players on the honor system, right?
Yeah.
And so this is like a situation where that just doesn't work. It's not scalable for a referee to be accurate. Kane, what about on your end? Anything kind of come to mind?
I just think it's not a specific moment in time, but it's amazing how many times, when you're working, you're like, oh my God, I just got stacked there and I have no idea what happened. And like, you just know all these moments throughout the game where you didn't do a good job. And, when you get done with the game, you expect like everyone to notice it, your partners or your boss but oftentimes you're the only one. And that's why that's why we talk about being your own worst critic, because if you're waiting on someone to make you better, it's never going to be as good as you breaking down your own film and you knowing what you did throughout the game and what you were thinking when that happens. You have to be your own worst critic. And in those moments where you made a mistake that no one else sees, how do you respond to it? Do you just let it go because no one else saw it and you don't try and change it, or do you get better? And to me, that's what separates the best, is like when you made that mistake and you're the only one who knows it, you still correct it, and you figure it out and you get better.
Yeah, that's important. Also, just with, you said, not being your biggest, or making sure that you're your biggest critic. Mm-hmm. If you're looking for validation for all the things that you do right, this is probably not going to be a great job for you also.
No.
So you've got to have that internal kind of strength and resolve, and probably also motivated. You got to have an intrinsic motivation. It can't just be about being motivated to be told that you're doing great.
Yeah, you'll never hear that.
Yeah.
No news is good news.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
I can get through a season without any phone calls. It was a good year.
Absolutely. And I get a lot of calls. James, you cannot do this. Okay. I get a stick across the arm quite a bit. So that's just me. That's just me.
No more riding ATVs, James.
Well.
I'm joking.
No promises.
Yeah.
If they don't want you to ride ATVs, they shouldn't put ATVs around you at the time.
What do they say? It's always better to ask for forgiveness, right?
Yeah.
Than permission.
About this, you could just think about how long you could prolong a referee's career, because a lot of folks leave the job because of bad knees.
Segue.
You could have a segue where you just go up and down. You could have Steve Javi could still be out there on his Segway.
You're going to look like Paul Blart, the mall cop.
Yep.
It's your Segway.
You could have Steve Javi, Ed F. Rush. They could still be out there working. Just on their Segway.
Great refs with their career cut short because of
injury. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's not think it's a bad. It actually could help. It actually could help.
Mhm.
Shout out.
Wait a second. I got something that's crazy. Because since we're on the tech side of things, I saw this thing yesterday on it might have been on Instagram, it must have been. But basically, it's for hikers. You put this belt around your waist, and then this device slides up over each quad. It's like and then it's connected, and it's basically doing the work for you. So it makes like hiking easier.
It's moving your legs.
It's assisting you while you do it.
Oh
Yeah, it's
wow.
making the load easier. They have it for
boy.
like warehouse jobs now too. Like there's gonna be it's so much tech coming. It's crazy.
Come
So
on.
if you use that, are
Yeah.
you technically hiking, or is somebody hiking? For me, it's like the audio books. If I listen to a book, did I actually read it? I'm asking.
If a tree,
That's a fair point.
If a
That's
tree
a fair
falls in
point.
the woods.
That's not as bad though. Like listening to a book, taking it in a different medium. But the whole point of hiking is to hike, right?
I hear.
So I mean, so I appreciate that from like I got to make my job easier. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would ask you about this, James, but I'm sure this is an area where you're going to tell me there's a cultural element to this.
Yeah, that's white people stuff.
It's white people stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
We don't hike. Black people do not like the heat. We're not going out in no sun, hiking up some rock.
I have zero desire to hike either. So unfortunately, my wife really enjoys hiking. So there's times when I maybe I would use that device.
That's fair because the times when I go hiking, it's usually not by my choosing either. Because in my motherland, in India, we don't hike. We just walk from point A to point B because that's the mode of transportation. We don't like just walk for fun.
Yeah.
We walk because that's how you get places. So, like, I don't culturally really understand the idea of like just walking around for fun. But I appreciate that there are cultures. Every culture is different. So there are some cultures that like kind of doing nothing and working really hard at doing nothing. And so
That's how I feel about it. I don't know. I just running without a purpose.
While we're building a folder of white people stuff, is going to a farm and like picking berries and things like that. Which is like, this is something that I pay someone to do, but now I'm paying you for me to go do it myself. Like you're paying money to walk around in the sun, to pick, bend down and pick berries that normally you would like pay them to do for you. But this is like, I've gone a couple of times and this is like a leisurely thing where they tell you this is like fun, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Nope.
To each their own.
Yeah, see?
Yep.
You've got it too, Sony, so you know it. Yeah, so it's like
these are all things I do not enjoy. It's just so we're on the same page.
We're gonna have to do go on ancestors.com, Kane, and do a DNA test. See, what's going.
He's got them black in him. I love it.
I'm Irish all the way.
All right. So let's pivot now. Let's talk about Thursday's presidential debate. I'm joking. Let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's stay here.
They have a debate on Thursday?
Supposedly.
Wow.
Yeah, no way. I can't. I don't believe it.
So
Joe, there's no way Joe gets up there.
Let's just.
Joe's getting up there.
I hope so. That will be must-see TV if that happens.
Come on, Joe. Just don't freeze. Just remember to keep moving.
Or fall.
What I'll say, and I'm not picking a side here, I pride myself in people not really being able to guess my personal perspectives, is as someone that is increasingly talking more and more in front of a camera, I could definitely appreciate that. You talk in front of a camera enough, you're going to do a bunch of stupid crap.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Now I'm not I'm not applying that to some of the things that we see sometimes from our respected Mr. President. I'm
Mhm.
just saying that, like, I can at least appreciate that, because also we see clips of politicians from all sides do all sorts of crazy stuff that looks really stupid. But yeah, I mean, if the camera and the microphone's on you 18 hours, 16 hours in a day, you're going to do a bunch of stuff. It's just what it's going to be.
Not
But
only that, if you think you're a young
No doubt.
person, social media is such a big part of the world we live in, right? Most people, when they're doing their content for their social media, whatever, they don't get it right on the first take, right? They got to do multiple takes. So,
Oh yeah.
this, when you're in front of a camera, it's live. I imagine that's pressure packed. So,
yeah,
Yeah.
but I did not know they were doing this in June, but I will not be watching them. If it's Thursday, I will not be watching. So,
What are you going to be doing? Where you at?
anything but that. I'd rather go
Yeah,
hiking.
I'm not. I'm not interested either.
I'll be interested to watch if it's actually going to happen. And I've read some of the debate rules that they have this time, where they're actually going to just cut microphones when someone's not talking. Now, that's what they say they're going to do. Let's see if that's actually what happens. And they've got some other rules, like you can't huddle up with your team during the television breaks. It's 90 minutes. You can't bring notes with you, but they'll provide you a notepad and a pen. So I'm interested to see if that actually plays out. And the general craft of doing a debate is interesting to me. I think the talking points, we already know what everyone's going to say, right? But the craft of it, or the art of the
It's
warfare, is kind of
it,
interesting.
it's definitely a skill to be able to do that for 90 minutes
Yeah.
and gather your thoughts and respond to things, and
Yeah.
it's being on TV is hard, no doubt.
Totally.
Yeah. Especially
Even
that.
if you're just yelling, like these two might be doing on Thursday, they might just be kind of talking over each other for 90 minutes. That's impressive too, So
We can't have Joe. We can't have Joe getting too loud. We need to keep his blood pressure right there, because God forbid if it gets too high. Come on, Joe. Keep it right here. Keep it right here. Don't get snuckered in. Keep it right here.
What's almost more interesting to me than the actual debate is the prep that both teams do during the week. Whoever their teams are around them that do a debate prep, they actually rehearse parts of the debate and the feedback and the strategy that both sides have. I would be really interested to be a fly on that wall to watch that.
Yeah,
And
that would be
here's
cool.
here's an actual genuine question. If you think about the state of the world that we live in today, just think about how crazy the world is that we live in. Why would anyone in their right mind want to do that job?
No,
Why?
I think the best we have don't, and that's why
Yeah, right.
we are where we are.
Just a good point.
Yeah,
They're like,
it's attracting a certain
no, it's
person.
not worth it.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about one more thing here. We're gonna do our off-season episode next week, but I did want to talk about some RefMasters news. We got some exciting stuff coming up. July, we've got some great sessions with Run and Ref and with Stat Sport around movement for referees and how the technology now that we're bringing into the officiating space is helping referees understand what they're doing on the court in terms of movement and how they can assess that and improve. And then we'll do a session later in July on assessing your camp performance, which is the week after RefMasters camp in Virginia Beach. And really excited about that camp. I know both of you have put a lot of work in building a team of clinicians that is second to none. But before we talk about camp, and actually maybe we'll talk more about it in our next episode, something that we've recently done at RefMasters is we've started a partnership with Vets to Refs, which is a nonprofit organization founded by a few individuals. Two I've had the pleasure to chat with a few times, Jeb McNally and Bill Kruper, some former military individuals that have started this nonprofit that connects first responders and veterans to officiating of all sports, not just basketball. And so they have this organization where you meet with them, they connect you to your local association, they help get you certified, they help connect you to people in your local area that are also officials, and then they partner with organizations like RefMasters on providing those individuals with education and training. But real quick, just wanted to get your thoughts on this. Let's go to James first, since Kane has an unexpected visitor. But James, what are you excited about most when it comes to this partnership with Vets to Refs? What do you see as the opportunity here in terms of how RefMasters can support this awesome opportunity to bring more veterans into the officiating application?
Well, I would say the first thing I'm excited about is we're trying to grow officiating, right? We talk about it all the time. One of the problems that we have in officiating today is there aren't enough people to do the job. All these men and women who've been doing it for 20, 30 years, they're getting ready to leave. Not enough people are coming in behind them. And so even at the high school level now, you're seeing games be postponed because they don't have enough referees to referee it. That's not good. So you have these sports are taking off, they're growing in popularity, but you don't have enough men and women out there to referee the game. So what I really like is that, number one, we're trying to grow the officiating ranks. And number two, you think about first responders, veterans, these are some people who are selfless. These are people who their whole mentality is to serve others. And that's what a sports official does. You are serving the game. So there's a lot of synergy there between, just having that mentality of it's not about you, it's not about your, it's about helping the game, serving the game. And people who are first responders, military vets, they do that very well. And then, like we talked about the other day when we met with them, sports officiating it's a hard job. There's a lot of pressure and stress involved with it, and that is also something that they are accustomed to, right? If you're on a call as a first responder, or if you're a military vet, and if you were in a war zone or what have you, that I can't imagine the pressure of that. So if you're out there on a baseball field or the pitch or the ice, that pressure would be, easy for you to handle because of what you've done in your professional lives. And so I think there's a lot of synergy between what they do and what sports officials do. And so I'm excited to see how RefMasters can help them. If they're interested in getting involved, we can help them learn the craft. Because one of the things we talked about is the lack of teaching, consistent teaching, not just, we give you some materials and, we kind of throw you to the wolves. That's a recipe for somebody quitting within 2 or 3 years, which is what we normally see in sports officiating. So RefMasters will be there to really help them create their foundation from the ground up. And hopefully that intel will mean they stay around longer because they're more confident when they're out there. They have a better sense and idea of what they're supposed to be doing on the floor or the field or the pitch or what have you. And so hopefully by teaming with RefMasters, we give them the ability to learn, which in turns will help them stay committed to the craft longer.
Well said there. Kane, on your end, as you think about first responders and veterans and the opportunity to to become officials, and doesn't mean that they have to try to become professional officials, but just working at their level. Um, any other thoughts in terms of just uh, the skills that a first responder or veteran has that might really lend themselves well to officiating, or maybe talk a little bit about the referee shortage and why this is such a great opportunity? Either of those two, if you've got thoughts on those, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I think James touched on it very well. I think first responders and veterans are uniquely positioned to transition into officiating because of their experience, especially in stressful situations. So, they deal with these type of stresses in their lives, and officiating can be a stress. You're managing people in an emotional, competitive state. So, I think it really they coexist very well. So I think that they're uniquely positioned to transition into officiating, and I think it's a great concept that the Vets to Refs team has started, and we're just really happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, I can't wait. I know that they're currently bringing in their first group of officials, and again, a basketball, football, baseball across the gamut. So we're really looking forward. And what we're doing at RefMasters is we're providing 3 months of RefMasters University at no cost. We're doing that in partnership with Vets to Refs, making sure that those referees can get off on the right foot, get plugged into our community, and also receive training from some of the very best in the world. So really excited about the impact that we can make there, as small as what we're doing is in the bigger picture. There's a much bigger picture here. And if you're interested to learn more about Vets to Refs, vets2refs.com. Check out their website. Reach out to us on RefMasters, and we'll be happy to plug you in. There's a number of ways that you can support that fine organization. And again, thanks to Jeb and to Bill and Liz and their entire team. We're really looking forward to continuing this conversation. Even though the NBA season is over, there's plenty more for us to discuss between the offseason, between the Olympics, between other sports, and also there's more basketball. James, you've been a big proponent of this, of the women's game and the WNBA in particular. I think that's something that you'll continue to keep your eye on from a basketball and from an officiating perspective.
Absolutely, yeah. The women, the WNBA is having its moment, and rightfully so. It took them a while. The league came into existence, I think, in '97. So 27 years later, they're finally getting their flowers. But Kane and I did 2 seasons, 2 summers, I believe, in the WNBA. So it's always been a very competitive, physical league. So this is nothing new to us, but it's new to these fans who are new to the game for them. And so I'm just excited because it's going to be great. You got this rookie class this year is a fantastic class, and you got people like Asia Wilson who's been around forever, Diana Taurasi. You've got a lot of great vets, a lot of great rookies. It makes for some really competitive basketball. So excited to see them and the ladies and men on the WNBA referee staff who are out there as well. Trying to manage those really difficult games, and so. I say from the couch, God bless you all, because I know it's not easy. And I've never missed one play from the couch. So, if you're not in the arena, it's hard. And so kudos to those men and women out there trying to do the best they can to referee those games and keep the peace.
Well said. Well said. And I appreciate you keeping the spotlight on that. And it's really fun. I was able to watch some WNBA this past weekend, like many others, and was really glued to my TV. So awesome stuff. All right. On behalf of James, on behalf of Kane, I'm Sony. We appreciate you checking out The Call in the Crowd, humanizing referees one pod at a time. We look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.